The tranquil setting Beason, Illinois in September 2009 was the epitome of rural American quiet. With a population hovering around 200, it was a community bound by familiar faces and shared rhythms, where the vast expanse of farmland fostered a sense of security and openness. At the heart of this tight-knit world was the G family, whose home sat on the edge of town, a modest ranch house surrounded by fields. Rick G., a self-made contractor known for his relentless work ethic, and his wife Ruth, celebrated for her warm and generous spirit, had built a bustling household. It included Ruth's children from a previous relationship, Dylan and Justina, their young son Austin, and their granddaughter, 3-year-old Tabitha, who often stayed with them. Their lives were not without hardship. Their daughter Jessica required full-time medical care, and Dylan faced behavioral challenges. But they were a visible and beloved fixture, their family truck a common sight on the gravel roads. The peace of the area was profound, measured in harvest cycles and the distance between neighbors' porch lights. This deep-seated normality made the events that unfolded on the night of September 21st not just a crime, but a fundamental rupture in the community's understanding of its own safety, a violation of the unspoken contract that such darkness belongs somewhere else. The morning of unthinkable discovery. The horror began to surface in the clear, ordinary light of Tuesday morning. 10-year-old Seth Langsam, eager to show off his new bicycle, pedaled toward his friend's home at the G residence. As he approached, the cheerful mission turned to confusion, then to dread. The front door was conspicuously ajar, and a dark, smeared substance stained the porch boards and doorframe. The boy, sensing a profound wrong, turned his bike and raced to the nearest house where Rick G's stepfather, Pudge, and grandson, Adam, were staying. Adam, responding to the child's alarmed report, went to investigate. He first saw the knife discarded on the steps, then pushed open the door. The sight in the hallway was a visceral shock. Rick G lay prone in a massive, congealed pool of blood, the scene speaking of a violence that was both immense and personal. Adam retreated without venturing further, shouting for Pudge to call for help. When Logan County deputies arrived, the initial discovery only deepened. The living room walls bore deep gouges and dents, a frantic map of a struggle. The officers moved with tactical caution, their training battling the surreal reality of such carnage in this serene setting. Each room revealed a new layer of loss. Dylan, Ruth, Austin. The home had become a tomb, the silence within now heavy with absence, awaiting the meticulous, painful process of becoming a crime scene. A glimmer in the darkness as the deputies cleared the house, the overwhelming narrative was one of total annihilation. The brutality evidenced in each room suggested no witness could have survived. Yet in a small back room used as a nursery, a flashlight beam pierced the shadows of a closet, illuminating a tiny foot. 3-year-old Tabitha was curled on the floor, her injuries so severe she was initially mistaken for another victim. Then a paramedic detected a faint, thready pulse. With urgent, gentle hands, she was lifted and rushed to a waiting ambulance, a spark of life extracted from the heart of the devastation. Her survival introduced a fragile note of hope into the overwhelming grief and became the investigation's most critical priority. At the hospital, she was placed in a medically induced coma to relieve massive brain swelling, her small body undergoing emergency surgeries. Simultaneously, she became the focal point of a protective detail. Police officers stood guard, aware the perpetrator might seek to eliminate the sole surviving witness. This dual mission, to save a child's life and to protect the investigation's only potential key, created a tense vigil at the hospital. Tabitha's fight for survival was a race against time, not just medically, but forensically. Her unconscious presence loomed large over the case, a silent repository of truths that might unlock everything. The early focus and a critical observation. In the initial chaos, the investigation cast a wide net through the shocked community. The physical evidence was stark: a bloody palm print on a bathroom vanity and a clear, fresh impression from a K-Swiss athletic shoe outside the home. Tips flowed in, including one about a silver pickup truck seen in the area. The focus remained diffuse until a seemingly mundane interaction at the hospital. A sheriff's corporal, concluding his shift guarding Tabitha's room, shared an elevator with Christopher Harris, the husband of Rick G's daughter, Nicole. Harris had come to the hospital in the aftermath. As the elevator descended, the officer's glance fell to Harris's feet. He was wearing white K-Swiss sneakers with a distinctive, aggressive tread pattern. The officer immediately made a mental connection to the crime scene photograph. This observation, born of routine vigilance, abruptly narrowed the investigative lens. It provided a direct, tangible link between a family member and the periphery of the crime. While not conclusive proof, it transformed Harris from a grieving relative into a person of interest, redirecting investigative resources and scrutiny toward his activities and statements on the night in question, setting in motion a chain of inquiry that would eventually dismantle his alibi. The unraveling alibi and damning evidence, Christopher Harris presented a straightforward alibi. He claimed he had been with his brother, Jason Harris, and Jason's girlfriend, Jennifer, throughout the crucial hours. However, the K-Swiss observation prompted detectives to probe deeper. They soon located other witnesses whose accounts contradicted this story. A woman named Lori Cole reported that Chris and Jason had come to her door late that Sunday night, behaving disruptively and seeking to continue a party. More significantly, a woman named Christy Moore revealed she had been in a sporadic relationship with Harris. She stated he had called her that very night and had arrived at her home the next morning, where they spent several hours together. She provided photographs of the two from that morning, images that showed a relaxed, unmarked Harris just hours after the massacre. Confronted with these inconsistencies, the alibi given by Jason and Jennifer collapsed. They were arrested for obstructing justice. The final scientific blow came from the state crime lab. The bloody palm print lifted from the bathroom vanity was a definitive match for Christopher Harris. This forensic evidence placed him unequivocally at the epicenter of the violence, transforming the circumstantial case into a solid one and leading directly to his arrest for the murders and the attack on Tabitha, a brother's bargain and a chilling account. With Christopher Harris maintaining his silence, the prosecution's case, while strong, lacked a clear narrative of motive and action. The turning point arrived when his brother, Jason, facing the same murder charges after his initial obstruction arrest, chose to cooperate. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Jason provided testimony that painted a horrifying picture of the night's events. He stated that he and Chris had been drinking and using cocaine, and that Chris, fueled by a distorted belief that 16-year-old Justina G had shown interest in him, decided to go to the G home. Jason claimed he waited in the truck as Chris approached the house with a tire iron. He then described hearing a confrontation escalate into a series of terrible impacts and cries from within. Jason's account included the vivid detail of seeing Dylan crash through a window, only to be chased down and struck by Chris before returning to the house. He testified that they later disposed of the tire iron and Chris's shoes. While Jason's story shifted in minor details over multiple tellings, its core provided prosecutors with a crucial sequence of events and a potential motive, a drug-influenced intent that met with violent resistance. His words from the witness box gave the jury a chilling audio backdrop to the silent, physical evidence, the trial, and a community's verdict. The trial of Christopher Harris was a grim, methodical affair. The prosecution built its case layer by layer. The irrefutable palm print, the shoe tread match, the discarded weapons recovered from a ditch matching Jason's directions, the DNA linking them to the victims, and the testimonies that shattered Harris's alibi. Jason Harris's cooperation, despite its self-serving nature, supplied the narrative engine. The defense struggled against the weight of evidence, ultimately offering a theory that Harris had arrived to find Dylan in the midst of killing his own family and had acted in a chaotic self-defense. A claim the jury swiftly rejected, given the sheer scale of the violence and the evidence of premeditation. In May 2013, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all counts. At sentencing, the court heard a victim impact statement from Tabitha, who wrote of her enduring heartbreak. Christopher Harris was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would never walk free. The legal conclusion provided a form of closure, but for the community, it was a closure steeped in sorrow and irreversible change, the quiet aftermath and a lasting memorial. In the years that followed, Beason grappled with the permanent scar left by the tragedy. Jason Harris served a 6-year sentence for obstruction and was released. Nicole Harris, having fiercely defended, then vehemently condemned her ex-husband, focused her life on raising Tabitha, who she adopted. Tabitha's recovery was long and difficult, involving multiple surgeries, but she survived with no memory of the attack, a small mercy. The G family home, a constant reminder, stood empty before eventually being demolished, the land returning to quiet field. To channel grief into something positive, the community fundraised and built a playground in Beason dedicated to the memory of Austin, Dylan, and Justina G. It became a place of laughter and play, a living tribute that stood in stark, hopeful contrast to the violence that had inspired it. The memorial served as a focal point for healing, a physical acknowledgement that while the past could not be changed, the future for the living could still be shaped by grace and remembrance. Lingering questions and moral weight. Despite the legal resolution, the case left complex moral questions in its wake. Jason Harris's reduced sentence sparked debate about the nature of complicity and justice. He admitted to hearing the violence, to witnessing Dylan's desperate flight, and yet he took no action to intervene or immediately call for help. His testimony, crucial for conviction, was bought with a leniency that many felt was disproportionate. Furthermore, the suggested motive, a drug-fueled assault on Justina, raised disturbing questions about the perpetrator's mindset and the failures that led to such a catastrophic outcome. The case also highlighted the fragile dynamics of a small community, where relationships are tightly interwoven and trust is both a given and a vulnerability. It forced a reckoning with the idea that the most profound threats can emerge not from the outside, but from within the extended social fabric, leaving a legacy of caution and a loss of innocence that extended far beyond the immediate families involved. Legacy of a survivor and the nature of truth. The ultimate legacy of the Beason tragedy is embodied in Tabitha G. Her survival, against all odds, became the investigation's linchpin, yet her traumatic brain injury mercifully shielded her from the explicit memories of that night. Her life represents a path forward, forged from unimaginable loss. The case itself stands as a stark study in the architecture of a murder investigation. How a major break can come from a fleeting observation in an elevator, how forensic science can provide unassailable anchors of truth, and how the human elements of betrayal and self-preservation can ultimately weave the full story. It demonstrates that justice is often a mosaic, pieced together from physical clues, failed alibis, familial betrayal, and the difficult, calculated decisions of prosecutors. The story endures not just as a record of a crime, but as a somber reflection on the suddenness with which ordinary lives can be shattered, and the long, complicated journey toward a verdict that can never truly restore what was taken.